sipping no toxic waste. On the low with your bitch in this grave. Mask on the face, Jason. Roger that said we in shape. If I go broke, she gon' leave, escape. She gone. I put $2 million in the safe, just in case. Don't go my way. No cap, my kids gotta have money, not just me. It's selfish. Ooh, I take the crown off the king like Mike did Elvis. Ooh, the world is wild, he dying, no lie, that don't help him. Ooh, your bitch wanna eat up the drip and you cannot help it. Straight to a penthouse, Miami Beach. Niggas talk crazy on tweets. They don't want it cause I come to defeat. They don't want it. I peek, these niggas all sweet. Bamboo sticks all in the Jeep. It's a new weirdo every week. Get it up, put it up for my seeds. No cure for the object disease. Do anything for clout. They do anything for clout. Do anything for clout. They do anything for clout. Do anything for clout. They do anything for clout. Do anything for clout.
Told my bitch to find us a bitch. We gon' fuck on together tomorrow. Fucking my wrist up, fucking her brick up, yeah. Go on and hop on the charter. I go to sprint, I go to take off a.
What is cracking, everybody? It is your boy QB Passport Flexing coming in. Let me get a mic check to make sure I'm coming in okay. We got 7 people in the building tonight. It's going to be a great show. I got a great guest that actually lives full-time in Mexico City. That's going to give you a lot of good insight. He has traveled to several different destinations, including Colombia, recently to Europe, lived here in the United States, speaks fluent English, did a lot to position himself financially and physically to where he's having a lot of success in Mexico. Something that I'm pushing for you guys. Obviously, on the next treatment. You know, I need to probably do a merge soon. I'm just really busy with a lot of things in life, but I will get to that. Just John says I'm coming in a little low. All right, let me adjust the audio really quick here. You know what? You know what it is? Okay, there we go. What about now? Let me get a 1 if this sounds a lot better. Please put a 1 in the chat. We got 9 people in the building. Get the likes up. Way better. Okay. Yeah, it's always the settings with StreamYard. You know, it wants to play my camera mic, not my mic that's here. I need to put a default setting on that, so I'll get that fixed soon. But anyways, oh man, appreciate the love. Kings and Dreams, man. Thank you for the $20 super chat, player. I know you're going to be traveling soon, I believe back to Medellin, but as soon as you're done with your travel adventure, QB definitely wants to interview you on this channel. We got Ronin Travels. Salute to you. Hey, man, much appreciated. You know, the 4-1 you provided on the keto diet, you know, and I can't wait for your great experience in Asia, you know, to definitely flex on these black pillars. So definitely looking forward to that. Let's see who else we got in here. Okay. So if you guys didn't watch the live yesterday, he actually, my guest, Jaron Scott, interviewed Michael Sartain, and they talked about the digital nomad life, really in comparison to being the single bachelor life here in the United States. And you guys have to take this to consideration. Going to places like LA, Miami, probably even Houston, clubbing Thursday through Sunday, after a while, it really gets overwhelming. Where if you become a passport bro or a guy that travels or a full-time digital nomad, you can go to many different places and spend less money and effort compared to wanting to meet 304s in Vegas, LA, and all these cool parties. Like, it's just not a viable solution. Okay. Appreciate you again, Kings and Dreams, with the $2 super, man. Okay, Medi, next week, man. Okay, cool. I don't know. Let me know if you're still going with Flyboy Way, because no matter how much I present other alternative places, guys are going to still want to go to Medellin and take the chance, and that's fine. But I think it would be some great insight if you can provide to the audience on how to travel safely in Medellin. We got Megatron with another 5, man. Thank you. 15 in the building. Appreciate you guys. You know, I normally stream at nighttime, so, you know, we should have a good audience. Happy birthday. Much appreciated. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up my guests. Let me just do this layout. You know, your boy QB got some nice layouts for StreamYard. 1 second here. All right, cool. Jaron, what is...
Ooh, let me adjust my shot. I was trying to figure out what layout you're going to do so I can get my shot good.
All right, yeah, no problem. No problem.
Just ripping a vape. I hope your audience doesn't mind. I go on some podcasts like, oh my God, you're a health guy and you're vaping. I'm like, dude, fucking
no. I think you're coming in just a little low.
Oh, okay. Here, let me turn this mic up. I've got this little Shure thing here. So Am I a little hotter right now? Is it a little better?
Yeah. Chat, let me know if you guys can hear him pretty good. Put a 1, please, in the chat if y'all can hear the guests.
Yeah, I can pull this up more into my face too.
Okay. Got another super chat from Kings and Dreams. Yes, we're going. All right, perfect, bro.
All right, yeah, let's roll.
I want to interview you and Flyboy after that trip. You guys are going to do a review on my channel.
Wait, hold on. I just saw it's your birthday. When's your birthday? Mine's coming up in like, what, 2 weeks?
It was yesterday.
It's my birthday. Oh, dude, happy birthday. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. It was yesterday, and I just kind of did the family thing. And, you know, it was good, you know, here back in the States for now. My next trip for me is going to be most likely San Carlos and Sonora.
Okay, yeah, you like the north, don't you, of the country?
Yeah.
There's some beautiful women up there, so I completely understand why. Mexico's a very diverse place for those who don't know that.
Right. Very diverse. So let's get right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your channel, and what do you got coming towards your way in the future?
Yeah, so I had a unique experience to where I lived down here in Mexico almost 20 years ago. I was a bit ahead in high school, got my AA degree when I graduated from high school, got a full scholarship. So I didn't want to graduate when I was like 20 years old. So I had the opportunity to come down here to Mexico too. At the time, I didn't realize it. Now, 20 years later, I realize it's like one of the good universities here. But I was just a kid. I was just having a good time. And I learned Spanish real quick. And this is before like smartphones and Google and even Facebook and all that stuff. I came down here in 2006 originally. So had a good time. Always wanted to get back to doing that. Went back to the US, did the whole corporate thing, rose through the ranks, worked in the tech industry in California forever. And then when the pandemic happened, I was kind of bummed out. I lost my job. I worked really hard to live a real cool lifestyle in California, but all of a sudden that high rent lifestyle with no income, you're like, oh, okay, well, the rug is getting pulled out from beneath me very quickly. So what shall I do? And I worked in fintech for a bit, had one of our clients with whom I interacted on this fintech platform we built years ago. He was based out of Miami. He's like, hey, do you want to go to El Salvador for a year and, try to get this back office outsourced business operations center off the ground? It's like, yeah, all right, yeah, cool, I'll do that. Everything was shut down in the U.S., so I went to El Salvador for a year, and then after the year came up, I realized, now where do I want to live now? Do I want to go back to California? I lived in Texas for a bit. Do I want to do the Miami thing, New York? And I popped by Mexico City, and I lived in Guadalajara years ago. People in Guadalajara always kind of talk shit on people from Mexico City, so I kind of had that taste in my mouth. But realized, okay, well, it's kind of an up-and-coming city. You know, they've done some real cool things in the last couple of decades, so I'll go by there and give it a try. So I stayed here for like a week. Went back to the U.S. trying to figure out what I wanted to do, start earning or making new income or revenue streams. I think I probably spent 3-4 weeks in the U.S., came back down here for 2 weeks, and then went back to the U.S. and then slowly started formulating a plan to get down here full time. So I went from a week, and then 2 weeks, and then a month, and then it was 3 months, and then 6 months. And then after 6 months, I realized, okay, well, I just want to live down here full time. So did my residency, set up all the banking, did all the legalese and all that kind of stuff. Essentially buried my life in the U.S. and then just moved down here full time. So that's what brings me here on your channel. I know these. I get shit all the time. You've alluded to the Sartain podcast. So I still don't know if there's a clear definition for passport, bro. I guess I'll own it since people say I am, but I'd say I'm more of an expat. Digital nomad, not so much because I live here full time. I actually don't travel as much as I used to, but take that as you may. You know, y'all can define the definition. But yeah, I'm a gringo who lives in Mexico full time. Let's just say that.
Right. And by the way, this view count is off. I don't know what's going on.
Mine did that the other day too. It said I had like 120 views, and I go over to the video, it's like 38 views.
Right. So I know there's not damn near 10,000 people watching me. So
it would be nice, but yeah, that happened to me. I think on the stream I did with you, it said there's an exorbitant amount of views. It's like, no, I don't quite think so.
Right.
I mean, based on my sub count, probably not.
Right. And so you've traveled to other places beyond Mexico. What places did you travel to? And then why did you choose to go back specifically to Mexico City to be a full-time digital nomad?
Yeah, so more in my early days when I was in college, I traveled all over Latin America, made it down as far south as Colombia, everything here and in between. So I've rented cars multiple times in my life and literally traveled all of these Central American countries. So anything from Tijuana down to Medellin, I've driven, minus the Darien Gap. You can't get there in Panama. And then in Europe, anything
really
west.
Quick, you drove your car
Germany.
from Tijuana to Medellin?
No. So on multiple different trips. So okay. I've covered that canvas, that landscape, but not in the same trip.
Okay. Got it. And so why did you choose to, out of going all to the other places, why did you choose Mexico City to be the place where you wanted to be a digital nomad full time?
So I had known for a while that I eventually wanted to be a digital nomad. I had lived in various places throughout Latin America. Anything over 3 months, I consider I quote unquote live there. So I've been in Panama for a bit, Colombia for a bit, El Salvador. I was there for a year. I lived in Guadalajara for 4 years prior. I was in San Diego for 12 years. So I went to Tijuana all the time and Baja California all the time. So my brother studied abroad in Germany, so I spent some time in Germany, some time in Italy, some time in Greece, Israel. So I've been to enough places for months at a time to where I started to figure out what it is I want in a city and what I don't. For example, I'm from the West Coast. I lived in Houston for 3 years. I never knew that not having mountains would drive the living shit out of me. I had no idea that was a thing for me. That I like warm weather, but humidity drove me nuts. I never stopped sweating in Houston. So I made a list. I'm kind of special in that sense, I guess. But I made a list of things. It was like 10 to 12 things that I was looking for in a city. Eternal spring-like climate. I lived in Guadalajara for years and lived in San Diego for years. I like nice weather. Nice weather feels good. The geo arbitrage thing, which Sartain and I talked about on his podcast. Where can I earn in dollars and pay in pesos and get ahead more or less? Mexico City is very expensive compared to the rest of Latin America, but compared to California, it's about 20 to 33% for the same exact lifestyle. So I can actually make less money, use my foreign earned income exemption, and actually get out ahead, which is a new way of thinking for me. So I made a list of 10 things, things like green spaces, good, ample supply of protein. El Salvador is really cool. It's an up and coming country, but protein is very limited there. They don't really grow a lot. They don't have a lot of livestock or animal production industries. So protein is very expensive in El Salvador. After about month 8 living there, I was there for I think 12, 13 months. I started feeling weak. My body just got a little soft. I was still training every day, still following the same diet I always do. But my body just felt a little softer, a little weaker. I didn't really feel physically comfortable there. So I made a list of, it was like 10 to 12 things, what I'm looking for in a city. Very surprised going to like citydata.com or any of these expat type sites to see, okay, what cities meet my criteria. I want to go to Asia at some point. I haven't been out there yet, but from where I'm at in my transition to the international class is what I was out with some friends earlier today, and we were talking about this concept. There's a new international class emerging in the world. So Mexico is kind of a jumping off point. For me, it made sense because I had lived here before. I speak the language. I'm legal. I can navigate the lay of the land. And it's close enough to the U.S. to where if I need to be in New York, I'm there in 6 hours. If I need to be in Miami, it's like an hour and 40-minute flight. I'm there. California, 3.5 hours, I'm in LA. If I leave my house right now, it's like 5-hour total transit time. So when I came down here, initially I was working for one of the big four, and I had to be close to North American cities and then Central American and South American cities. I'm 100% independent now, but for me, that was just kind of the logical jumping off point, taking all those factors into consideration.
Gotcha. Really,
25K. We're famous now.
Right. Let me just read these super chats. Shout out to Kings and Greens again. We're all looped in the same group. I think that was in reference to the Passport Bros and what Passport Bros mean. And then we got another $2 super chat from Kings as well. Medellin
is cool. I do like that city.
Yes. And the weather in Mexico City is very similar to Medellin. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's like San Diego. It's quite nice. The days are kind of warmer. It got to 86 degrees today, but we're high in elevation, so it doesn't feel temperature-wise as hot, but it cooks you. I do TikTok videos here in Spanish, and all the Mexicans always get on me. You white guy, you have sun-damaged skin. I'm like, bro, I live a mile and a half above sea level, above the tree line. This is my office out the window. Like, yeah, I get a little cooked up here. And again, if you haven't been outside of your hometown, you don't realize that things like altitude make a difference. It is the sun, it bakes you, but it's not like temperature hot to the skin, if that makes sense. And Medellin's kind of the same way. It's like Seattle in summertime is what I say.
Got it. And interesting about the protein. So in Mexico City, is there a decent amount of organic stores to where you can get grass-fed beef, I'm assuming, in Mexico City compared to other places?
Yeah, so Mexico City is a massive city, so it really depends on where you go. I'm on the northernmost edge of Polanco, which is one of the nicer neighborhoods. But literally, we have the expression in English, the wrong side of the tracks. So literally 4 blocks up, you cross the train tracks, and you're in a not so nice neighborhood. But the markets are good, so you can get good produce and good quality meat at Mexican type prices. Now, if I stay in my neighborhood, you're going to pay more international type prices, still cheaper than the US, but for Mexico or Latin America, it's still quite a bit up there. And then actually, interestingly enough, I live in a neighborhood that has a large Jewish population. So anywhere in the world, any religious type meal preparation requirements, halal for the Muslim or Islamic religion, or kosher for the Jewish religion, then usually it's higher quality meat. So we do a lot of kosher here in the house. If not, if I'm just going to the regular flea market, I go to the wrong side of the tracks, and then you get some real good stuff too.
Right. So also, transitioning. You lost a significant amount of weight when you started dating abroad. How was that process, and has that made your dating life more successful? Of course, learning the language as you speak fluent Spanish, by the way.
Yeah, so when it comes down to anything, I never say that there's like a one size fits all type solution. There are many little things you have to stitch together. So maybe, okay, if I dress a bit better, if I take care of my skin, if I have a six pack, if I live in a nicer apartment, those maybe add like 1 to 2%. But if you do enough of those things over the longer term, then they compound to something much bigger. So, I mean, to be honest, like I don't lean too much into the black pill type stuff, but
Right.
they are right in the sense that when you are perceived as more physically attractive, a lot of doors open up for you. I was 100 pounds overweight most of the time growing up. I have young guys that I coach, and hey, man, I'm 5'3" and 130 pounds. Like, how do I gain weight? It's like, dude, last time I was 130 pounds. I was like 8 years old. So like I'm on the opposite end of that coin. But when you are bigger, when you do have a leaner physique, when you have like a muscular, more imposing physique, especially when you live abroad, that definitely helps. It opens a lot of doors. Even I mentioned to you in the pre-show, we went to a notoriously very bad neighborhood in Mexico City today. Found what I like to call some general rules when you travel abroad, like follow the pretty people. So there's a whole classes thing or whatever, but even if you're in like the most ghetto of neighborhoods, find the people that are trying to present their best selves, the people that are in shape, and take that as you may. Like for example, my anti-aging routine is more than the average monthly Mexican wage. I understand that. So in this neighborhood, I'm not gonna like be an asshole or anything, but the people with the knockoff sunglasses and knockoff purses, that they're trying to present their best selves. They're into the same kind of music I am, into the same kind of scene I am. So you meet really cool people no matter where you go there. So pretty much anywhere you go in the world, you're going to find these kinds of things. So I always say like follow the pretty people. And for me, I used to not consider myself in that camp when I was considerably overweight. And again, take it as you may, but I've noticed that the more physically attractive I become, or the more imposing or more aesthetic physique I build, it opens a lot of doors for you in this kind of nasty neighborhood we were in. The minute the sun went down, the police and the military were rolling in, and I was with a couple of girls. They drank a little bit, so they're standing in the middle of this like seven lane road. The sister's on the motorcycle, like, who's going to drink? Like you're drinking, or are you driving? Who's going to take the motorcycle home? I was like, we'll just get an Uber back to my house. We'll all go. The police and the military came rolling through, and I was just standing in the middle of the road, but they kind of saw, like they can tell I don't belong in that neighborhood. I don't know how to say it in a more delicate way, but you kind of give them the head nod. You give them the head nod, and like any military or police or whatever, like they care about their physique or their physical stature or their physical prowess, so to speak. So it does help. I have noticed from my perspective now, being in good shape, they just kind of, oh yeah, come along. Like, they're probably thinking like, pinche gringo, like, get the fuck out of, what are you doing in this neighborhood? Get out of here, But when I was 100 pounds overweight, the world did not respond that way at all. And again, I don't like to lean into black pill, but to be frank, I mean, it's a lot easier when you're in good shape. It really is.
And I like to respond on that after the super chat. Kings and Dreams want to interview on his channel. So,
I'm more than down. I'm
okay.
To get out there.
Kings, I will shoot you his information. You guys can make that happen. But you're 100% right. The world doesn't respond to you in a respectful way. I was overweight, and it's just, I mean, look at the body language compared to, this girl here compared to the girl that I'm with now, So I totally understand where you're coming from, and not to make this into a black pill conversation, but guys can put themselves in a lot better situation if they're physically fit when it comes to dating. I'm not saying that is everything, because you do need social skills, which we're going to segue right into that, and not be so much of an introvert. And when you have that dynamic going from you, several different elements, your dating life is very fulfilling. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and it's not even so much the girls. So again, I referenced the point to where we went to a very bad neighborhood in Mexico City, but you notice this happened years ago. I think I went out in Atlanta, and I went out to like more of a we say urban in white culture, but like a black nightclub in Atlanta.
Right.
And my friends are like, hey, bro, you cool? You cool? I'm like, I'm always cool with everyone. I don't live in the US, so I'm not into that whole like us versus them type mentality. Like abroad, pretty much everyone's fucking cool with everyone. So we went there and I realized walking to this nightclub that like the biggest, baddest, kind of like most quote unquote alpha type guys there immediately like, oh, hey, like obviously I'm not from that neighborhood, you know? So it was like, they kind of put their arm around it. Hey, bro. And I noticed that even today, the same thing happened, that in this very lower income neighborhood, for lack of a better term, the guys that, you know, you can tell the guys that go to the gym, it's usually like the guy at the door, like the barman was, you know, pretty jacked for being from that neighborhood. Again, he doesn't have the socioeconomic access I do to like good, high quality organic food or any of that stuff. So based on his circumstances, he is the top of the top physique wise in his neighborhood. And when you're in the gym culture for a while, you can kind of understand that. So, but immediately there's almost like this unspoken bond between you. Like, okay, I respect the fact that you can do this with your physique and I see this in you too. And you kind of get like a carte blanche. You kind of get a pass to where any neighborhood, anywhere in the world I go into, like the other guys who are jacked, they kind of literally put their arm around you like, hey, you know, what's going on? And you more or less get safe passage. And yeah, it definitely helps in the dating realm, to be honest. I mean, the first time I got a 6-pack years ago, I went to Coachella and I was walking around with my shirt off and just 19-year-old chicks just pulling their tops off and pressing their tits against you. I went to EDC here in Mexico a couple months ago. Same exact thing. Oh, can I take a picture? Oh, like Televisa. Hey, bueno, hemos mamado aquí en México, así que si te puedo entrevistar. Okay, yeah, cool, we can do that. But it's the guys too. Like you have that unspoken respect between you. And I get a lot of pushback on this sometimes, again, from a lot of, I don't really understand why, the black pillar guys that know that, yes, looks matter, but they're not doing anything about it. You can really streamline your physique for not a lot of effort once you start to understand how your body works. But it pays dividends at the end of the day. It really does. And again, I know it sounds arrogant sometimes, but I was 100 pounds overweight when I was 17, got brutally publicly humiliated asking a girl out to prom. Like, oh my God, not only would I never go out with you, but you're disgusting. I know you call me all the time. Everyone knows I like you. I'll never like you. Okay, whatever, to like going out and just dating Televisa models. Like that's just the reality now.
Right. Well,
so it is worthwhile if you're on the fence whether you should get in shape or not. Just do it.
Right. One thing about the black pillars, which I kind of leaned more towards self-improvement, is a lot of them are actual doomers. And so they're not really pushing out to, you know, lose weight. And when you lose the weight, you know, encourage others to do it. It's more that, hey, I'm not having that successful dating life. And why don't you come join me and shame other men that are actually dating or actually, you know, did the work and, you know, achieving success. That's what they don't really promote. So I would say it's more of a jealousy, envy type of energy, you know, for guys that actually done the work.
They're not necessarily wrong academically or intellectually, in the sense that, yes, if you have I use the term perceived higher SMB. So when I go to LA, sometimes I feel like, oh my God, the guys are good looking in LA, Miami, New York. You know, they have more money, more status, or whatever. I do believe that I got this from Red Pill, that game does trump all. I do very well in LA. I do very well in Miami. I do very well in New York. I don't have the status. I don't have the income, but you have kind of the gravitas that you develop, especially living outside of the country. So all of these things do factor into the overall equation of what constitutes an SMV, but maximizing your looks or doing the looks maxing type thing, it definitely doesn't hurt.
Right. Absolutely. Kings and Dreams again for the $5 super chat. Appreciate you, man. Do you get pushback from your community dating outside of the United States? That question's for you.
I do sometimes. Where I grew up, it was an agricultural community. The U.S. is very diverse. So every small town, you have different ethnic groups. So I come from more of a German background. So I did have friends. My high school girlfriend, my high school sweetheart was Tongan. So I got shit every now and then, like, oh, why don't you date a good white girl? And like, I never really understood that. To this day, I say like a hot chick's a hot chick. I don't really care where she's from. Like if she's cool, she's cool, and if there's physical attraction, then it is what it is. But yeah, but since then, the U.S. has changed a lot. I think we're more into like the intercultural dating or whatever. I never get pushed back in the U.S. Here in Mexico, they're very classist. So I do get. You probably saw earlier. I posted a story with some younger girl I went out earlier today.
Oh yeah, we're going to show that in a second.
Oh, good. Let's do that. Yeah. So I will get. I'll show you some screenshots here after the show, and if you want to do a video on it, I think these topics are interesting. So, other Latins, they're very classist, and I hate to say it, but racist too. So, so when I go out with a girl that has more kind of indigenous characteristics, the Venezuelans, the Colombians, the Argentinians, Uruguayans, Paraguayans, they will say things like, "Oh, con tu belleza mexicana." I was like, she's just a cute girl, and she's into me. I don't really care much. And I again, I always say that a pretty girl is a pretty girl. Doesn't really matter where she's from. But my community, I'm obviously a foreigner here in Mexico, but there is kind of a racial and classist element to it. So from other Mexicans and other Latins, I do get things like, why are you dating that girl? Or, you should be with someone kind of more like you, which is interesting. If you follow the mainstream media, you'd think that'd be more prominent in the US, but I don't really see that being a white guy in the US. I don't really see that as much in the US. It's kind of like, oh, dude, that chick's cute. That chick's cute. She's cool. Okay, cool. Here in Mexico, it's like, ew, why are you dating that girl? Why'd you go to that neighborhood? Why are you going to this place? Like, I just go where cool people go. I don't really care.
Well, to kind of add on that, I notice in Mexico specifically, it is predominantly white, mestizo, Spanish, and type native blood. Even though it is diverse, but for the most part, when you see in their media, it's more the fair skin.
They look like me, but when you walk around and no one looks like me. Like I'm the only one who looks like me here. We're in this bad neighborhood, and I have a thing to where like I wear the sunglasses. Like we were like day raving and shit too, but I have to put the sunglasses on because with the lighting you can't see it, but I have like really light green eyes, so like they go crazy over the colored eyes, which is cool. But if you're in a bad neighborhood, you cover those eyes because you don't want people coming up to you and be like, hey, like you don't belong here. And obviously I'm a bit taller than everyone else, a little bit wider than everyone else. I think that comes down to just nourishment, and again, going back to that socioeconomic type issue. But yeah, like normally I cover the clear eyes. Like no, just I want to be a gray person, just someone just kind of NPC in the background. I don't want to call attention myself because clearly this is not where I belong.
Right. So let me ask you this: the JBW, does that apply in Mexico in your experience? And do you know what JBW is?
No, I was just going to ask you that. What is that exactly?
Basically, just be white. Okay. So can just like an average white guy show up to Mexico, not really learn Spanish, and just have success with Mexican women compared to something like maybe Asia?
That's a really interesting question. So I think yes to a degree, but no also to a larger degree, in the sense that so you will stand out. That there is a whole whiteness thing in not only Latin America, it's actually most of the world. Again, going back to that Tongan girl I did in high school, her mom used to buy skin whitening products, and she wasn't very tech savvy. So she's like, all right, I need to go on like the Japanese eBay and buy these skin bleaching products. And for me, I always thought that was the weirdest thing. As a white guy, we want a tan, Right. But I have noticed to a degree that does exist in Mexico. However, I've had plenty of white buddies come down that don't know the culture, that are kind of seen as awkward based on Latino perspectives. And okay, yeah, like just being white, that'll get the attention. That's just like the whole attraction thing. You'll hear guys in the red pill space all the time. Yeah, you can be jacked, but if you don't have a personality, you don't have game, it only gets you so far. It'll get you in the door, but it's not going to get you any further. So in that sense, I think that yes, there is a degree of that whiteness element, but the minute you open your mouth and you don't know the culture, you don't know the language, or you just don't have game in general, then that can blow up in your face very quickly. Whereas I've got a couple buddies here, 2 Asian buddies and 2 black buddies, to where, okay, yeah, on the surface, maybe they don't have the perceived SMV I do, but they've developed game in their own ways to where they do very well. In fact, they do extremely well. But a lot of times we'll get together, we'll have drinks, and we'll kind of share our strategies, completely different tactics. Because I do understand that there is that factor to a degree, but I always get that, like, okay, like, you're pretty cool for a gringo, or like, okay, yeah, you're American, but you're not like other Americans. I'm like, yeah, I'm not weird,
Right.
based on Latino perspectives. But again, I think that goes back to the fact that I went to college down here, so
Right.
just be cool anywhere you go, and I think you'll have a good time.
Right. Well, I tell guys that because there is, a huge Eurocentric population in Mexico City, in Mexico, the just be white theory, a lot of them look like so it's
the college I went to, they were more European than I was. I'd go out with my buddies. We'd go to like little pueblos and stuff outside of Guadalajara, and they'd go to my buddies like, "Ay, pinche gabacho, maldito gringo." I'm like, yeah, that guy's the gringo. I'm like, I'm the white guy here,
right. And so I say that, you're competing with, the local guys, and the local guys, they know Spanish and they know a lot about American culture, especially like the upper middle class Mexicans. They have visas. They speak English. They have family members.
A lot of the rich people are American citizens. This was a thing years ago to where we have citizenship by birth in the U.S. So the wealthy families, when the wife is pregnant, back in the day, I'm sure they still do it now, but I'm not fairly certain. They would go to the U.S. and then, because the university I went to in Guadalajara, a lot of girls I dated didn't speak a lick of English. We're like, oh yeah, no, I'm a U.S. citizen. I was born in Phoenix. I was born in L.A. I was born in Houston. I'm like, well, how's that? They were from high enough wealthy families to where the mom would go to the U.S. and they'd have the kid in the U.S. They have the dual citizenship thing, and then they get benefits and chances for jobs in U.S. universities or whatnot. But yeah, again, it's hard to comprehend coming from the U.S. I know in U.S. mainstream media we do talk about the class thing, but in Latin America the class thing is very, very abundantly clear. So if you are from the upper middle class or above, you live a completely different reality than someone from the neighborhood we went to, for example. Or I was telling my roommate to get the residency program. I think it's something like $3,500 a month. That's the income requirement for the last 12 months. That's pegged against Mexican minimum wage. That's 300 times the Mexican minimum wage. So do the quick math. That's like what, $10, $12 a day. So
yeah,
there is a very, very steep difference between the social classes here.
Got it. And I would still say in Mexico, it is more of a classist determination, and in certain different social circles compared to actual races. Because a girl that I've met in Veracruz, she's moreno skin, and she family speaks English well. Dad owns an engineering company, works for the father, and just because you're an American doesn't really give you so much of an advantage compared to other places.
There's some real money down here, and that was I made that mistake years ago in Guadalajara. Like, I come from like a decent family. We grew up kind of lean. There was a recession in the early 90s, so I grew up in the 90s. Things were kind of rough in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. A lot of people made a lot of wealth. So like my family kind of made it up to just above middle class, more into the upper middle class, like not wealthy by any means. So I came down to Guadalajara thinking like, oh my God, I'm American. I have all this money. And like my first girlfriend I had in Guadalajara, they had a full live-in staff, so like butlers and maids and cooks and gardeners full time. Her dad had like an extensive collection of exotic cars. They had an elevator in their house. They had multiple properties all over Mexico. I'm like, oh, like I'm not shit. That was a little slice of humble pie.
Right. So
like, there's some real money down here, but the money is concentrated across the higher class.
Definitely. Let's talk a little bit about social circle in Mexico. I noticed because you're well established, specifically in Mexico City, you pretty much have a good supporting cast of friends, and you're able to do things compared to a lot of people that just travel there for the weekend, or probably been an expat for a while, but it's just not really having that success and dating women and meeting other people. So what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think pretty much anywhere you go in the world, that the more you're less of a tourist and the more you are an actual kind of local resident, again, for lack of better terms, you get more of a pass. So, for example, when you talk about like game sequences or things like that, you'll come across what Red Pill calls them like S tests. A lot of like PUA guys call them compliance tests, but one that inevitably always comes up is like, hey, where do you live, or where are you from? At some point, they'll realize I'm not from here. So where are you from? And I would say I'm from California, but I live in Polanco. Like, and then they'll ask you. I was right before I got on the stream, some girl texted me this question. Okay, are you just here on vacation, or do you actually live here? I'm like, I am legally Mexican. I have a corp. Like, I am legally Mexican. I'm not nationalized yet. I still have a couple years left for that part of the process. But, when I travel abroad, I can present my Mexican ID and like, I'm legal to that degree. So that makes a difference in the sense that I think it is one of those things just to kind of get you in the gate to where the girl wants to know, like, okay, if we hang out, we have fun, we hook up or do whatever, that you're not just a fleeting vacationer and then you're going to take off and be on to the next. Now, a lot of times those girls, they still will hook up. It'll be a one-time thing. They'll just have a good time. And then maybe they get back to the ex-boyfriend, they get busy with work or whatever. But I've always noticed that's a big barricade to get over. Like, hey, do you actually live here? And back even when I didn't, or like when I go to Colombia, they'll ask you, hey, are you just here on vacation, or do you live here in Colombia? It's like, no, I'm actually based in Mexico City, but I come to Medellin often. That's the next best answer. I come here frequently. I'm here often. I'm not just a tourist. And then actually, I'm going to run to the restroom real quick if you don't mind taking it for a minute.
Yeah. No worries.
Raving with Mexicans.
Right.
So
No problem. While he does that, we're going to play a little quick video. Telling you, man, you guys got to get out there to Mexico City. This is a Sunday fun day. Him and his boys out there having a good time. Chad Light Maxon, I guess, but those are the cuties out there in Mexico City, man. All right, gringo guys hanging out, having a good time. And we're going to talk about day parties, roof parties, because there's a lot of them in Mexico City. I'm going to play that one more time, that you guys can go to and go check out. I've been to like one roof party in Mexico City, but I need to go back. I met a cutie in Mexico City, probably a couple of years ago. She kind of got jealous that I had a main, and it's like, all right, man, cool. I had to get rid of her, not a problem, but he has embraced the culture and has assimilated to the norms of Mexico. And if you guys want to have success in foreign countries, you have to follow suit. Just showing up and having an unrealistic expectation is not going to get you results. The cowboy culture, very big in Mexico. Your boy wears the cowboy hat, has the cowboy swag, cowboy appeal. I embrace the culture there. It's a girl out here in Hermosillo.
That's why you go to the north. That's how they look in the north. Here in Mexico City, they're more, it's La Cuna de Mexico. So if you look, like, I don't have a link off the top of my head, but look like Mexico breakdown, like racial kind of breakdown by state. And it's very, very diverse. And in the South, it's all Mayan. And as you go further north, it's more like German, French. Someone mentioned Lebanese. There's a big Arab population here years ago. So you get people that look vastly different in every region of the country.
Right. So let's segue into some of these rooftop places.
Yeah, those are fun.
Right. It seems like, you've been kind of the king of rooftop. This is Supra.
That's a cool place. Yeah, I like that place.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about this rooftop place.
So most of the nicer neighborhoods in Mexico City, they're concentrated around the perimeter of Parque Chapultepec. It's kind of like anywhere you go to New York. Like imagine it like New York, like anywhere around Central Park. Like those are usually pretty nice places. You go more to the extremities, maybe not so much, although there's a lot of gentrification there too. Yeah, Toledo's a good place too. So any of those types of concepts, stick to the good neighborhoods, the upper middle class neighborhoods, and then any sort of rooftop, and they're all usually pretty good. So there was a while, I think, during closer to the pandemic type days, to where a lot of foreigners were down here, and it was a little oversaturated. But I think now that a lot of companies want Americans to go back to work in the physical office, that there's not so much the foreign population as before, or the ones that have stayed down here. Like we're all legal. We've figured out how to have a consistent remote income, figured out how to, like, there are remote jobs out there. There's fewer than there were before, but there is a certain way to kind of manage that or navigate that landscape. So these places for a while, they kind of got effed out by the foreigner class, but now they're getting a little better. And then kind of the same way, I have the same rule when I go to places like LA. I lived in LA like 10, 12 years ago for 6 months. Didn't have a good time, didn't live in a good neighborhood, didn't have a good job. I actually kind of struggled there after 6 months. Like, get me out of here. I'm going to go back to San Diego. Now, when I go to LA, I hang out with guys that are well connected in the social scene. They kind of know the movers and shakers. They're cool guys that are well connected. And a lot of the best places are more invite only type things. So I've been in Mexico City for 3 years, so a lot of times I'm using my cell phone as my camera right now. Otherwise, I'd show you a screenshot. But but there's private groups to where, like, the promoters, the organizers, the actual DJs will put out like, hey, we're doing an underground pop-up show next weekend. There's only 120 tickets. Get your name in. Hey, do you want a table? So when you start getting your way into those types of groups, then you get access to more of the higher class and the higher. And again, not just girls, but guys in general. A lot of times I think these spaces focus on, like, okay, the girls. But when you come to Latin America, you just have to be cool with everyone. And if you can get in with the guys, they will open the doors to more girls, if that makes sense.
Right. No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. I was trying to pull up Toledo on the Instagram to kind of show the crowd really quick. Or
the one, I think I sent you a link earlier. It's that Dance Sun Party. So they do they're the production company of a lot of these rooftop events, and they do some cool stuff. And it's more kind of like California day drinking vibes. You mentioned the Antro, the nightclub thing. I work a lot, and I work very long and strict hours, so I do sometimes, I can stay out till the sun comes up, but then it just kind of throws off my sleep schedule. So I've always been a day drinker, or I use the term day raver. Like, okay, the party starts at 3, but it ends at midnight. All right, I'll be in bed by 1 or 2. Yeah, I'll only get 6 hours of sleep, but I'm not going to be wrecked on Monday morning for work. Whereas if you know Latin cultures, they'll go all night or multiple nights in a row. So you got to be careful if you're working with American clients, but living down here.
Right. So you have Toledo, Supra, and then what's the third one, would you say?
I go to Kabuya a lot. Cabuya. They do a lot of the private events too.
Let me spell that again. CY.
Cabuya.
Okay.
And then you have your normal. They're not really hot spots. They're not party spots. Ling Ling. All the girls here, they want to have Ling Ling on their Instagram. Bellini is the Rotary restaurant, kind of like they have in Dallas. So that's a good place to take them. Not too pricey. You can get a couple of drinks and an app, and spend like $50. Yeah, okay. Kabuya is pretty cool. I go to that place quite a bit.
Nice. Okay. And let me ask you this. Obviously, is there a dress code?
It depends. If it's a normal day, like casual or above, for the private events, they normally have themes. Now, it's not like California. I went to a white party last weekend. You'll go to ones in California, like, hey, if you're not wearing all white, you're not getting in. So here, they're a little more loosey-goosey, but you do have to dress a bit decently for a lot of places.
Right.
Not so just
can I wear like a baseball cap and baggy clothes?
That goes back to the classist thing. And actually, I was in LA 2 weekends ago, so I had a big baggy white shirt on and a pink baseball cap. And my buddy's like, "Hey, you can't wear that. You're gonna think you're a gangster." I'm like, "Dude, who's gonna think I'm a gangster? Like, I don't look like a gangster." But all right, cool. So, yeah, there is kind of a degree of that. They want like gente bonita, like pretty people in English. So don't dress like a cholo. Don't dress like a ghetto person. If you want to go to higher class places, you don't have to be perfect, but make an effort. And a big thing, I don't know if this exists as much as it did 20 years ago. But when I was in college down here, a big thing was that you have to wear like good shoes, like zapatos. Zapato just means shoe, but it also means like shoes, like actual shoes.
Like dress shoes, basically, right?
Yeah, that used to be a thing when I lived in Guadalajara like 20 years ago. And even now, normally, like I went to a kind of cruddy neighborhood earlier today. I still wore closed-toed, comfortable shoes, just in case. And especially, it's really crowded too, so you don't want to wear flip-flops and have people smashing on your feet.
Right. There was a pool party that I sent you. We're going to show that really quick.
Yeah, let's do that.
It started with an A. I think it was a latte, Alita.
Oh, when was it a link I sent you? I got caught.
Hold on, I'll find it really quick. 1 second here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it just seems like Mexico City has so much to offer. While I look for that,
it's a huge city, so there's everything here.
What would you say for someone to really conquer Mexico City specifically? How long would they have to be out there total?
I mean, it really depends on the effort you put into it. I know a lot of guys that come passing through. So I have a good group of friends. They live between Medellin, Lima, Buenos Aires, Santiago, Chile, and they come through Mexico City on their way back to the U.S. So they'll come and hang out for like maybe a week, 2 weeks at a time, maybe even a couple days. So it's a good transient passing through city. A lot of guys come down here and they're not quite prepared, so they'll usually wash out within 90 days or so. A big thing is you have to figure out how to make money online and have reliable income online. Or if you don't, make sure you have enough runway. It is considerably cheaper here than in the U.S., but if you're going out every night and having fancy dinners, because you get a taste of it. You're like, oh, I can go to a 5-star restaurant and then spend as much at one of the best restaurants in the country as I would at Applebee's back home. But if you do that every night, you're going to run out of money really quick. So a lot of guys get washed out real quick. You have to start to develop those habits to be like, hey, I need reliable income sourced from the US or Canada, Australia, England, wherever you're coming from. And then actually start to plant your roots here. So I'd say usually for me anywhere, like usually about a year time frame, I start to feel pretty comfortable. I've been here for almost 3 years. So I noticed even when I lived in California, after about the 3-year mark, that even in a huge city, people know you. You go out and people recognize you. They've seen you around. They kind of know who you hang out with. If they don't know you, they know a friend of a friend of a friend who knows you. And in Latin cultures, it's all kind of about that. I joke about that all the time. Like, hey, who helped you get an appointment at the Mexican consulate in San Diego? Oh, it was the brother's ex-girlfriend's dog groomer's friend's grandma's mother's sister, something crazy like that. So the social thing is definitely huge here. And then the longer you are in any place, you start to create those social connections to where your reputation kind of leads in front of you, which really, really helps out.
Right. So this is the Alayu rooftop that I was talking about, man. I mean, like I said, guys, if you want a good, classy, safe environment, beautiful girls, Mexico City definitely has that. Okay. That's good enough.
It's like the New York of the Spanish-speaking world. So people actually from here, and I hate to say it because I have so many good friends here in Mexico City, but they're not known in Latin America for being the most attractive people. Like obviously Medellin takes the cake there. Places in Brazil, Venezuelans are actually quite beautiful, Argentinians, but Mexico City, it's a large international city. So you get people from all over the entire world. So by virtue of that, I mean, there's Israelis here, there's Russians, there's Japanese and Chinese and Koreans. There's people from all over the entire world here.
Right. Now, in terms of how was your dating experience in the West transitioning to Mexico, and what's kind of the difference?
Yeah, I actually I'm in a unique camp to where I do pretty well in the U.S. too. I'd say it's the way I always describe it. So in Mexico in general, I'd say Mexico City is probably harder than the rest of Mexico because there is so much money here to where I think you kind of alluded to it earlier to where, okay, yeah, I'm a gringo. I do all right for myself, but I don't have Latin American money. I don't have 500 years of like Spanish upper class money. I'm nowhere near that. So the top of the top of the top are always going to go with those guys, but I can get into the level just below that. Mexico as a whole, or when I was in El Salvador, I got cast in commercials. Like they treated me like royalty, but it's a very small country. The entire country is about the size of San Diego County, just to add some context there, but super cool people, 30 years of tragic history. They're finally, they have a growing spirit. They're finally starting to get it together. Not a lot of foreigners there. Which is a huge thing too. If you go to a place where there's a ton of other Americans or foreigners in general, well, you're just going to be another one of the bunch. So that all has to be taken into consideration. But in general, I'd say in Mexico City, it is an emerging global class city. So I'm glad I'm here kind of on the ground floor. But by no means do I think that I'm going to compete with like actual, politicians or famous actors or musicians or things like that. And this city is like the New York of Latin America. So you are competing in that environment, but if you understand kind of where you fit in and you etch out these niche social circles, and you can actually do very well for yourself.
Right. How much would you say is that average date in Mexico City, like a 3-star restaurant where you can get either steak or maybe some seafood and you meet the girl, maybe you guys go on a second date? How much would you say that would cost on average?
So here I'm in a good neighborhood, but there's a chain of restaurants here that I really like because I eat a lot of protein for the gym thing. So it's called Don Asado. It's an Uruguayan steakhouse. So usually I can get 2 empanadas. We get a chorizo relleno, which is like a cheese stuffed, bacon wrapped chorizo, which is really good. And then like a good cut of meat and then 2 drinks. It's usually 2 for 1 from Escalita. So normally I can get out of there for 500 pesos, which is what, 30, 32, 35 US dollars. However, the neighborhood I live in, you can get very pricey very quickly too. Like we went out the other night, and I think I spent like 6,000 pesos. I'm like, what? Like I just had a normal meal. It was like a $300 meal. I'm like, holy shit, yeah, I'm in Mexico, but I'm in a nice neighborhood, so you got to be careful too. Where we went this afternoon, I think they were selling cocktails, but they were liters, and it was 120 pesos per. So I bought the first round, it was 360 pesos. The second round, I just got 2 and we all split them. It was like 240 pesos. So what is that? Plus tips, 600, 700, 800 pesos, like $40, the whole day we got out of there. And we got a little toasted. Like there were strong drinks. It was good.
Right. And so do you notice in these upscale places, is it still majority locals there, or you're realizing that there's a lot of expats that are going to these places, or kind of a mix of both?
It depends on where you go. So where we went today, it was entirely Mexican. I didn't see any other foreigners there. It was my roommate and myself, and then like 5 or 6 Mexican friends. For a lot of these rooftop parties, there are other foreigners, but they're not necessarily English-speaking foreigners. They're from other Latin countries. The neighborhood I live in, there's a lot of foreigners. A lot of my neighbors are foreign, but again, there's a high Jewish population here. If you look it up, there's a high Jewish population in Mexico City in general. So a lot of people from that part of the world or of that tradition, but also a lot of other Latinos. So of the girls I date, for example, I always say that it's roughly 50-50. Like 50% are Mexican girls and 50% they're other Latin girls. So they're Colombian, Venezuelan. Every now and then a Peruvian works her way into the mix. Argentinian, Chilean, and you go back to like kind of like the European type thing. So a lot of in Latin culture, a lot of times the girls that are like more European blooded, a lot of them do, but a lot of them also don't date outside of their race. So for me, that just by happenstance, I'd say 50% of the girls I date are other Latinas, not Mexican, but they're not American either, or American, British, Australian, Anglosphere.
Right. Speaking, go back to what you kind of mentioned, that there some of the parties that you've been to are kind of invite only. how do you kind of get into that in crowd of people?
Yeah, so first, you see the memes every now and then. They're like, so I like to say that I'm naturally introverted. I spend 95% of my time with myself, but when I go out, I really go out. So you see the memes that say like, okay, like what does an introvert do to make friends? They have to be adopted by an extrovert, and then by virtue of that, you know, they get kind of embedded in the social scene. So that's kind of the thing I did here. I used to be a quote unquote high ranking member of a Red Pill content creators inner circle. I went on his channel a lot, so people kind of found me on there. And then when I came to Mexico City, people that were viewers of that audience, like, hey, you know, I'm in Mexico City too. So started kind of introducing myself to different populations here. Got the invite to one of the events. The first one I went to, didn't know what to expect. I think I went with my main girl at the time. We just kind of sat there, got a couple of drinks, and then I realized, okay, we should probably do the table thing. And then, and then I've been to like 20 or 30 of these things now, to where now I know the promoters and the door guys and the owners of the bar and all of the organizers, the DJs. We always do after parties here at my house. So now I'm embedded in that group to where they just text me directly. Hey, we're thinking of doing this thing, you know. Can you rally some people up? Like, yeah, I'll get a group of 7 or 8 people for me, but I can probably get like 20 more people to show up. I mentioned like that link I sent you earlier. They put me in a lot of their promo videos because.
Let me see if I can get that up really quick.
Yeah, and let me see. In one of the older videos there's one. I think I told you behind the scenes. There's one where I'm in there like in 3 takes, and literally every girl in that reel I've dated before. Which one is it?
Just tell me where to go. You know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. So go to that dance sun party. It's 1, 2, 3. I think it's the 4th one down in the middle.
Okay, so 1,
let
2,
me see.
3. This one right here.
Yeah, it's that one right there.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if you can make it bigger.
Oh, there you go. There you are.
So I show up in most of these videos because I dated that girl for a bit. Like literally all but two girls in this video I've hung out with.
Oh, wow.
But eventually you go to enough of these things and it's a smaller, there's like 300 people on the invite list. And of course, like you can invite other people. And then as you get invited into the group, the more of these things you go to, you bump into people like, oh, so I started doing the table game to where now I usually get one of the best tables. But at first it was just me and my main girl. We didn't know anyone there, but we've been in like 20 or 30 of these things where you start to meet people and you meet the promoters, you meet the manager, you know, the door guy, and you start to get a kind of a city of tens of millions of people, you start to etch out your niche in this very small subculture of such a large population.
Right. Now, let's go logistics here. How much more or less is a table at a rooftop party?
It depends. There's usually minimums. So these ones I go to, it's usually anywhere from 1,700 to 2,200 pesos per bottle. So that's like $100 to $120 per bottle.
A lot less than Las Vegas.
Yeah, so I'll typically do 2 or 3. Usually I'll get out of there for $500, $600. There is the rule down here that the guys always pay, but if I go out with like 3 or 4 other foreigners, we all spend less than $100, and we have a table, like literally just girls lining up to come to our table to meet us. I do some gimmicky things too.
Okay.
I always go out with I go out the rave kit, so I've always got like LED sunglasses, LED earrings, and shit like that. So like. And then I usually take out a group of like three or four girls of mine, a couple of buddies of mine. They each bring 1 or 2 girls. So we roll out, we make a presence. Then if you want to come to our table, if you want to get like some LED sunglasses, these are like $20 for 25 of them. So I just show up and give them away. But you have to come to our table. You have to take photos. You have to do the Instagram stories, tag us, and all that stuff. So that again, that kind of helps you get more into that digital or digitally mediated social game too, which I'm not naturally a social game guy. I actually learned a lot of that from Sartain recently, like the last year or so of my life.
Interesting.
I was always the online game guy, but they complement each other quite well to where you can meet a girl out and about, and then Months later, she matches you on Tinder, and then you give her your Instagram. She's like, "Oh, we follow like 8 of the same people." And then she'll ask her girlfriends, "Who is this guy? How do you know this guy? Oh, he's super cool. He's always at these events. Oh, he dated my sister. Oh, he's a good guy. Oh, he's nice. He's really into fitness. He's really into personal development." Like, so you start to build a reputation through these. Again, gimmicky. But you start to build a reputation through these little teeny tiny details. And I think in general Latin American culture, they call it like a detallista. It's the details do matter, if that makes sense.
Right. And so would you say you have more of a preference meeting face to face, or what's your experience meeting girls through the dating apps?
Dating apps, it's easy and hard at the same time. It's easy in the sense that you can run volume. So you can have, like, I have my typical scripts or sequences to weed them out as fast as possible. But a lot of times I'll get cold feet. Like, hey, like in the moment they'll be excited. Hey, I'm going to go meet this guy and I think he's super hot or whatever. But when it comes time to it, they'll flake out. So I've found that's why I said they complement each other nicely, to where a couple of weeks ago, I met a girl at one of these rooftop events. I was with 2 other girls, and she was a Venezuelan girl, a real cute girl, and didn't get her information or anything like that. She seemed real conservative. I kind of like tried to small talk her, but I think one of my buddies in the group was trying to talk to her too. I'm like, okay, kind of whatever. And when I go out, I'm looking to meet everyone, girls and guys. Like that, you just have to be social, shake hands, kiss babies, do the like Bill Clinton, like senior statesman politic type thing. You kind of got to run that game. And then that was Saturday. I forgot about it. Monday, I think I'm sitting, I would say I Tinder on the toilet and in the taxi. So I was on the toilet, open Tinder, have a match. I'm like, oh, I recognize that girl. She was there on Saturday. And she sent me a text. She's like, hey, I saw you on Saturday. I saw you with 2 other girls. I really liked you. I figured you were busy, but I really wanted to get to meet you. She's like, I never go on Tinder, but I opened it up. And she's like, you were the first one in my stack. I'm going to close it. Just give me your number. I want to meet you. I'm like, all right, easy. And I think that was 3 weeks ago. And every time I've gone out since then, like I've taken her out with me because she's just a cool chick. So that's where I say they complement each other nicely. In this case, I met her in real life. She didn't know how to find me. She met me on the dating app, but sometimes it goes the other way. This girl, if you go back to that dance or whatever, there's a girl here I dated for quite a while. I had
video or back to the Instagram.
Yeah, go back to the Instagram.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, and I sent some photos of her too. So, so she was one. We were at one of these pool parties. We're in the pool. She came up and kind of started dancing on me, and then she had a gay friend with her, and like the gay guys will wing for you too. And it's like, hey, make out with her. So we started making out in the pool, dancing. The photographer is there, which you'll see me in the promo videos with her. And it was one of those things. I was like, hey, pull out your phone, give me your Instagram. I pulled out her Instagram. I was like, hey, sweetie, it'd be nice if I could add you on Instagram, but you blocked me. And she's like, oh, what? Bloqueado. And everyone's like, Dan, bloqueado, porque bloqueado. And then it turns out I had matched her, I think, months prior. She had agreed to go out on the first date with me, but like day of, she flaked on me. I was like, hey, what the hell? Why'd you flake on me? She said, oh, I didn't think you were real. I thought it was a fake profile. Or like, oh, I got cold feet. So that happens a lot too, to where
got it.
Like in the moment they'll agree to the date, but afterwards, like, yeah, do I really want to go meet up with some foreign guy? Is he real? Is he like, in a lot of these countries, there is a security factor too. So she kind of watched that process. The one in the black and the white there on the right. So
this one here,
down below.
This one here.
Yeah, so the one on the right I dated for a bit. Those 2 are actually sisters. So she was one like, she's like, I was like, hey, you blocked me. It's like, why'd you block me? She's like, oh, I didn't think you were real. I was like, well, here I am in person. So she did a little story and she tagged me in it. And then we saw each other for like 3 months. And then, she's real young. So a lot of times the young ones, they'll get their fix and they kind of burn out of you. And then they're on to the next thing, that shiny object syndrome. So you kind of learn just to have fun with it. But that was an example to where I had met her on Tinder. We had conversed for a bit. We had set plans. She flaked on me. I forgot all about it. And then when I met her in real life, and I was like, hey, give me your phone. I'm going to go add myself to your Instagram, drop in my own DM and say like, hey, oh, that's sexy or something like that. I was like, hey, I can't contact myself because you blocked me. She's like, oh, why'd I block you? I was like, why'd you block me? She's like, oh, I thought you were fake. I'm like, I'm here in the flesh. in front of you. So no, I'm
Right.
not fake. So that's where I say that those are two examples to where they complement each other nicely. The online game, the day game, the social game, the night game. Because even, and you might notice this too when you travel, you can go to the world's largest cities, but after a while, like people kind of get to know you. It's the weirdest thing. You'll run into the same people. You're like, what the hell? There's like 20, 30 million people here, but I'm running into the same people.
Really quick shout out to Kings and Dream with the $2 super chat. By the way, you guys want to super chat?
I'm gonna take a bio break real quick.
Sure. Go ahead. You know, it's my birthday weekend. You know, I appreciate the love, Kings, no doubt. Networking is critical. This guy is spitting facts. Absolutely. He is giving you several different elements to where he is winning in Mexico City. In decent shape, pause, no homo, knows the language, knows the promoters, gets invited to private events, and he doesn't have to do much. Okay, he doesn't need to go pay thousands of dollars to some dating coach. I'm affiliated with this famous person that's an athlete on the Denver Broncos or the Milwaukee. No, he's not doing that. He's going out there being sociable, meeting higher class people in Mexico City, and he gets the invite. And I can kind of say the same thing for myself and other places that I've been to in Mexico. I met some really cool people where they like Americans, they play basketball, or they like to watch basketball. Hey, we're going over here to this club tomorrow. Can you come join us? Or my cousin thinks you're cute. Can you go talk to her? That type of deal. So it's very important to put yourself out there, socialize with people, make friends, because they're going to make your dating experience a lot better. There's many times where I preach, be friends with the taxi guy, be friends with the Uber guy, be friends with the waiter, the waitress, the hotel guy. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on.
Be cool with everyone here. A lot of gringos come down and they're assholes. And like I said, when I was younger, come down like, oh, I'm king swinging dick here because I have American dollars. Like, no, there's real money down here, you know? So, just be cool with everyone. Yes, there is a class thing. There is a racial element here, but if you're cool with everyone, then you just doors open up for you. And they are a social society. Like you know this, they have like these huge families. It's, as I mentioned earlier, my mom's cousins, friends, hair cutters, dog groomers, co-worker. You're like, okay, you have like 7/8 degree of separation, but as long as you're cool with everyone, then you'll have a good time.
Right. And so when people, when I mean people, basically like clients or people that find you from your channel or on social media, if they say, hey, Jaron, I want to go to Mexico City and basically follow your lead, do you offer that through?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Just hit me up if you're in town. I'll take you out. I used to go out and like do like, oh, we'll meet up for dinner, we'll meet up for drinks one-on-one. But I'm actually pretty busy in my professional life, so weekends are kind of my escape. So usually, like, hey, how long are you gonna be in town? Oh, who are you here with? A lot of guys come down with like their girlfriends or whatever, which is fine. Like, I'll grab one of my girls. We'll do a double date. That's cool. But if you want to go out and like go to these types of events, yeah, just hit me up. Let me know when you're in town, and if there's something going on, then I'll just bring you along with us.
Right. Nice. Now, have you ventured out, like, let's just say for like a weekend, a little bit outside of Mexico City? Like, a great example is Cuernavaca, which is about 45 minutes away. And that's a really nice place too. And Puebla, which I believe is like an hour away from Mexico.
Yeah.
Right.
Not so much this time around. So when I lived here 20 years ago, I played baseball for my university. So I went all over Central America, every corner of Mexico. This time around.
And you went to college in Mexico all 4 years?
No, I was 2 years in college and I stayed for 2 years and worked. So I was
got it.
in Guadalajara. I was in Guadalajara for 4 years, but only 2 years in college. And I played ball for 2 years there. So got to see every corner of Mexico, most of Central America, a little bit of South America. So back in the day, yeah, I went off the beaten path. I'm a bit older now. I'll be 37 here in 2 weeks. So now
Okay.
As I mentioned, I was talking to some people earlier that there's an emerging international class. So I'm more kind of like that. Like, yes, I live in Mexico City, but when I leave Mexico City, I'm going to like New York, Miami, LA, Paris, London. I work at like a very high corporate level. So unfortunately, I don't see as much as real Mexico as I did before, but I have seen it before. However, that was 20 years ago or so. Although I'm getting to the point now, like Mexico City has notoriously bad traffic, but I was in LA recently. I was like, wow, you can get like a used Porsche here for like a good deal compared to what they cost down here in Mexico. So I'm looking at like, buying a nice exotic car up in California, bringing it down. The naturalization thing's a whole process, but it turns out my accountant's brother actually does that. So I was like, hey, give me a quote. If I can get a Porsche in the US for a third of what it costs in Mexico and then naturalize it, and then if I decide not to use the car, I can just sell it and make a profit, then I'm looking into doing that here in maybe the next 3 to 6 months or so, to get Mexico City's big on Formula One too, because they're part of the circuit. So I want to get more into kind of that group of people too.
Got it. Shout out to Motivation Movements for the $199. You fellas are dropping jewels. Thank you so much. And guys, look,
I love these conversations. They're really interesting.
Right. If you have any specific questions, because we're not going to be on here that much longer, hit me in the super chat, and we'll get to it. So in the future, are you looking to settle down and seek a girl long term, or you're just kind of having fun and see how things go? What's your enlightenment on that?
Oh man, I'm back and forth on that. So I went out Thursday night, had a couple big sales. I'm onboarding with a couple new clients. So 6 months I was kind of lean economically wise, and again, it is real tough to like set up like solid revenue streams online. There's ups and downs, but I'm beginning an upward type projection again. So we went out for a celebratory dinner, really nice 5-star restaurant here in Polanco, and I actually got food poisoning. So like I can eat street tacos all day long, but you go to a 5-star restaurant, like I was throwing up all day Friday, and yesterday couldn't venture too far away from the toilet. And in moments like that, you get the thought process like it'd be really nice to have a solid girl. I'd really like to have a wife. I'd really like to do the more conservative thing. But today I woke up just feeling great and like, now I like being single too. So I'm back and forth. I'm sure at some point I'm starting to slow down a bit. I say that in the sense that I'm a lot more selective with who I go out with and who I spend my time with. But I've found these last few years, I make that declaration at the beginning of the new year, like, I'm going to be a lot more selective with the girls I date. And then the volume just increases even more. It's kind of ridiculous to where like, all right, now I'm the chooser. Now I get to select who I'm going to date. And then there's more options that way. So it is really tough. I would like to settle down someday, have kids, have a family, but the more and more I say that, or the more picky I get with girls, the more volume I have. So it's really hard. I kind of straddle both lines there.
Right. Really quick shout out to Neon Sage with the $2 euro. Shout out to Jaren and QB quality stream. Yeah, and like I said, if you guys have any specific questions, I mean, he lives in Mexico City, knows the culture, knows the language. What about? I got another question for you. The type of women in Mexico City, beyond the beauty aspect, is it mainly girls that are working, going to school, that you dated, single mothers? What's the aspects on that?
Mexico City has a bit of everything. So it really depends on what you want. Even guys, like if you go on like Tinder, I got banned from Bumble years ago, so I don't know what it's like here, but Tinder in general, you'll find everything. Again, going back to like the Sartain podcast, you'll hear him say things like, and it makes sense, like in Vegas or LA, like, hey, you're not going to find the top girls on dating apps. You can find them here. They're usually not on there for long. They'll go on for like a day and then realize, whoa, there's not much out here, and they'll get off. So but just as a general cross sample of society, you can really find everything here. It's not like when you go to rural parts of the US, it's like, okay, yeah, they're all single moms. They all have like some kind of baggage. You go to like LA or Miami, it's like, all right, it's like the star fucker type culture. They're all trying to get ahead, like, playing the status game, trying to monkey branch and level up. There's everything here. So it really depends on where you're at in your game progression, where you put yourself at in terms of social groups, but really you'll come across absolutely everything here.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. I mean, one thing that I've noticed in Mexico City specifically, when you go to like, the formal event parties, like the rooftop stuff, you're going to run into women that are really independent, that don't mind taking you out. The girl I had a date on Tinder, she wanted right. She wanted to pay for the date, and I'm like, wow, this is the first.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, there's the second girl I ever hooked up with in my entire life. I've known her for almost 20 years now. She's from a wealthy family in Guadalajara. So she'll hit me up. She's like, hey, my dad just bought a new investment property in Cancun. Do you want to go out there for a week? I'm like, yeah, sure. Like I pay for the flight, but it's like $50 each way on Viva Aerobus. Notoriously shitty airline, by the way. But like, I mean, you can really do it on a budget. There's in the international class, there's a Peruvian girl who recently has taken a large liking to me. So whenever she's up in Mexico, she's like, hey, I'm going to Cabos for a week. Everything's all included. Just get out there and you're with me the weekend. I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and do that. You have to make it clear because these are like wealthy people down here. It's like, I can't party during the day. Like I work, I'll be in the hotel room. I'm going to be boring, but you and your girlfriends go out and have a good time. And then when the sun comes down, oh yeah, I'll turn up, I'll turn out and tuck out early and still be up and online early too. So in terms of planning the lifestyle to live abroad, when you start getting into those classes, that does take a bit of effort. I think I'm getting better at figuring that out. But yeah, there are again going back that a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to leave the U.S. because geo arbitrage, my American dollar will get me further. Yes, that is the case, but there is some real money down here, and when you start getting into those groups, yeah, you'll get girls like, oh yeah, like, oh, my dad has a place here, let's go. Like, okay, cool.
So this is a very important question I'm going to ask you. In Mexico City, what is the odds of you meeting a girl, let's just say at a day party, nightclub, or a private party, you and her leave, and she says, hey, that's going to be $100 or something. Has that ever happened to you in Mexico City?
It's not like Colombia or Panama. That has happened to me in Mexico City. It's always with Colombian girls. And that's not to say they're all bad. A lot of the girls I date are Colombian. They're from like higher Colombian class. That is tough for a lot of foreigners. The Venezuelans don't do it as much. I've noticed the Venezuelan girls, they're usually kind of a bit feisty. They're kind of nutty. They all smoke a ton of marijuana, but they don't try to charge you. The Colombian girls will do that. Specifically, they're from Medellin. So, and it's tough because
a Venezuelan girl that I met in Mexico City 2 years ago.
Did she do that?
No.
Yeah.
Cool as hell.
Yeah, the Venezuelans have never done that to me. I've only had it, I think, happen twice in the 3 years I've been here, and they've both been girls from Medellin. But I've dated dozens of girls from Medellin, and they're all super cool and they're nice. Like one of them I dated, she was a trainer for the Colombian Olympic team. Okay, my main girl for years, her dad is in the Colombian political scene, let's say that. So like she's not charging guys to hook up with her. Like she's in a different social class, but you do have to be careful. You will, especially the girls in Medellin. You'll meet them and they're so kind and they're so cute and they're so sweet. And they'll play the long game too. They'll be with you for a while and they'll start dropping in little things like, you never give me presents. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, my present is my presence. I take you to the nicest places in town. I introduce you to cool people. I live in a bomb ass apartment. Like, I'm introducing you to a social strata that you would otherwise not have access to. What are you talking about? So that's only happened to me. I think it's like twice. I can count on one hand. And they've both been girls from Medellin. But compared to the dozens of girls I've dated from Colombia that I've never had an issue with.
Let's talk about safety really quick. What are some areas that guys should definitely avoid in Mexico City, and how is your safety overall in the area that you live in compared to other places?
I'm in one of the nicer neighborhoods, so safety wise, again, you'll walk around and at first you're like, oh, I'm American, I have a lot of money. But there's Bugatti dealerships here, and it's funny. All the luxury car dealerships are here, and then they have what's called like blindado, which is bulletproof. So there's like Ferrari dealership and then like a bulletproof car place, and then like Maserati dealership, bulletproof. So like down this main street here, a couple blocks away, you'll see those all the time. So there is a lot of wealth in this neighborhood. I walk around any time of day where I live and don't feel any sort of security issues at all. Where we were at earlier, the minute the sun started going down, the police rolled in very quickly and they cleared everyone out of there. So I've never been there after dark. I don't really have any desire to be there after dark. So I could imagine maybe not as safe. You again, being a guy who's even though I'm foreign and I clearly stick out like a sore thumb, just having a bigger physique, larger stature, being broad shoulder, somewhat defined, and walking around like you know what you're doing. So if you're like a lost tourist clutching your passport to your chest, like oh my god, people will notice that. Just blend in the background, and most people won't notice you at all. I've never really personally had any sort of safety concerns, but you always have to watch your P's and Q's. Like the neighborhood we were in earlier, people in my group, they're putting their cell phones on the table, and you kind of put in their ear, like, hey, watch your pockets, watch your purses. Hands will sneak into your pockets, so just make sure you have like a mental checklist of what you brought in here, and make sure you're bringing it out of here. In my neighborhood, not so much. You can leave a cell phone at a restaurant; they'll track you down, they'll find out where you live, and they'll get it back to you. I remember years ago, I see someone say Germany
right there.
I see someone said Germany years ago. I was in Frankfurt, and I think I went to a bar in the airport, and I must have left my passport, which I never leave my passport. But I was trying to board my plane, and there's some German guy chasing me down. He's like, hey, you left your passport. Now, if you do that in Central America, an American passport goes for like a nice sum on certain markets in those countries. So don't do that. Keep track of your passport, keep track of your cell phone. Just watch your P's and Q's. And again, especially when you go to like the not so nice neighborhoods, realize that you're not King Alpha, you're not King Big Swinging Dick or anything there. A lot of American guys come down, they have like an aggressive bravado type attitude. A lot of the red pill guys do this. It's that like always alpha all the time is what I call it. Don't do that in bad neighborhoods and countries where you don't speak the language or you don't know the culture. Like you're just asking for a bad time. You are a guest wherever you go. If you're a good guest, you will be treated as a good guest. That's kind of my general rule. So again, just be cool. Just be chill, and you'll have a good time. So personally, I've never had any security issues. I have heard other foreigners that have had security issues, but usually that's like they'll go out, they'll get really drunk, they'll do like some random drug that some guy in the bathroom sold him. Like don't do any of that stuff. Obviously have your wits and senses about you, and you shouldn't have any issues.
Right. I was trying to find where I stayed at in Santa Fe, which is a very nice.
Santa Fe is nice. Yeah, that's like newer money part of town.
Right. If I can find it, cool. If not, no big deal. Shout out to Kings of Dreams again, man. Appreciate the support.
You have a good chat, man. You guys are engaged.
Well, number one, they like your intel. Okay. I try to, when it comes to guests on my show specifically, it's basically, travel bros, content creators. But now in 2024, it's guys that are actively traveling or guys that are actually expats. That's what I like to present to my audience, because unfortunately, you kind of already know this, but a lot of people are claiming passport bros, and it's like, are you traveling? Similar to dating coaches, like, hey, I'm a dating coach, but who are you dating?
Yeah.
And so when you give a lot of value, your audience appreciates it. And that's what we're kind of seeing here, including other content creators. Another $2 super chat from Kings and Dreams. Thank you, dog. Humble alpha and know your surroundings. Yes. And go ahead and elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say he actually had a comment earlier. So again, I know it sounds weird coming from a guy who looks like me, but it is a thing in Mexico. So as a black man, I've never ran across a place where women were into brothers in Mexico. However, I'm not the Mexico expert. So I've noticed more racism with other Latina girls, Colombian, Venezuelan, Argentinians. Like the Argentinians are kind of known as like, like the pinky up when you drink the wine, like that type of people. So there is a racial element here. Being a guy who looks like me, other Latin girls will say things like that, like, "Oh, you have good German blood or good Anglo-Saxon Saxon blood." However, two of my best bros here are black guys. They do just as well as I do. So for every girl that doesn't date black guys, there's another girl who's like really into it. And in a city of 20, 30 million people, there's not a lot of brothers here. So they will find you. They will seek you out. Just show up and be cool, and you will have a good time. So I just wanted to kind of clarify on that point.
Yeah. And like I said, for me, anywhere where I go in Mexico now, granted, because I know the layout of the land and dated girls, Mexican American girls in California throughout my whole life, that transition into Mexico is a lot easier and smoother for me, compared to other guys maybe from the East Coast where they don't really know a lot about the Mexican culture and, how the women are. Because there are a lot of Mexican women where you'd be like, man, she don't like brothers, and that's all she dates, When I went to...
that. Yeah, they'll say that too. I'll have girls like, "I don't date white American guys." I'm like, "Yet here you are."
Right.
Funny.
When I went to Cabo last year, I met this redhead girl from Los Mochis, Sinaloa.
Oh, I love redheaded Latinas. I was in a phase for a bit.
Yeah, and I would have never known she liked black guys, and she literally cold approached me. I can't find this video that I was trying to look for on Mexico City. No big deal.
I have a theory too that a lot of them have fantasies. So you have to figure out like what fantasy box do you fit into? Like most girls, even in the US, like white girls, like most of them have like a black guy fantasy. A lot of Latin girls have some beef with the US. I was mentioning earlier, like Mexico's a relatively stable country. The only wars they have are with themselves and with the US. So like there's some history there, but because of that history, there is like the white guy gringo, whatever type fantasy too. So it really depends on like identifying that fantasy, like where do you fit in her fantasy box, and then how can you insert yourself in that narrative? That's just a theory I've carried around for a while, but I think there's something to it.
Yeah, and so like I said, she was fair skinned, in shape, and she had a black man fetish, and she's actually in my Cabo video, and cool as hell. Spoke English, and she's a young girl, 21, just turned 21, and so I noticed that in Mexico, the younger girls, they're just kind of want to have fun for the most part. Unless you kind of meet them,
just show them a good time. And you have to remember, you are going to be exotic. Like they want something different than what they're used to. And by virtue of being a foreigner, you do already have that going in your favor. You just have to know how to show up and be cool and not be, again, quote unquote, weird.
Have you ever had students or anyone like kind of had that bad experience where they showed up and they were on like, being really weird or introverted? Has that actually happened?
Yes and no to agree. A lot of times it's like when you go to most bars in the US, you'll see the guys ass packed. It's like 80% dudes. They're all just clutching the beer to their chest and they're pivoting around like girls, bro. Like, got to do a round. We're going to do a lap. We're going to go. Kind of one of those things. People here understand that, and they think that's kind of weird. Or a lot of American guys. Again, I think Mexico City's not as bad as it was a couple years ago, post-pandemic. But you get like the too cool for school type guys. You get a lot of that. Like anytime there's a city that's on the heat map for like PUA type guys, I'll run into them every now and then. They're always gaming all the time. Which I used to be that guy too, but I realized like the less I try to game, the easier it is. Like I just go out and have a good time, and people just kind of find you. It makes it a lot easier. But so you'll get guys kind of newer to the abroad thing, to the game topics, red pill type spaces. So that can be a turnoff for a lot of girls here because again, like hot girls know the game. You know, like
Right.
a lot of times, I'll come to revelations like, oh my god, I just figured this out. But this girl's been being hit on since like the day she started menstruating. You're not going to teach her anything new. She knows what's going on. So a lot of times you get like the too cool for school type guys or the standoffish American guys. A lot of American guys are real aggressive too, which I understand. When I go to the U.S., if I don't go to like private events, I was in Tampa a few months ago. Pretty much any bar we went to, everyone was just looking to have a bad time. They were hyper aggressive, on edge, wanting to fight you. Bumped like, what the fuck, bro? You're like, dude, what are you doing?
Right.
Like, I'm not having a good time. Like, why would you go out looking to have a bad time? I don't understand that.
Right.
So you have to drop that mentality, if that makes sense. And if you do that, again, like just show up and just be cool. Like you realize you are a guest, even if you speak the language, even if you're legal, even if you've lived here for decades and you have children here, you will never be one of them. So that's pretty much anywhere in the world. One thing, people talk shit on the US all the time. I've talked plenty of shit on the US, but in the US, it's like you can show up and be like, hey man, I'm American. I believe in the American dream. All right, cool, buddy. Yeah, here you are. You're one of us. And most of the rest of the world, it doesn't work that way. Like I will never be considered Mexican by Mexicans, but I can be a good guest in their home and have a very good time.
Right, exactly. And that's why I tell guys like, hey, assimilate to the culture, embrace the culture. And you'll really find out that Mexicans are very accepting of people that respect their culture and their families. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I got invited to, private parties, quinceañeras. And when you go to those places, it's like, eat more
They'll just
food.
invite you to dinner.
Right.
Yeah. You go on like a fishing trip and the fisherman's like, hey, like I was gonna go to market and try to sell this. I was like, dude, how much is the day's catch worth? $40. I'm like, dude, I'll give you 50 if your wife and daughters cook it up. I'll buy a bottle of tequila. Do you have a guitar? Cool, let's play. And like, there you go. They do stuff like that all the time, and those are real cool experiences.
Right. I won't really read this, but guys, get along in the chat, man. This, this ain't a black pill.
Gotta regulate.
Right. It's like, come on, man.
And that's kind of where my brand's suffering. Like, I don't really know where I fit in. Like, I agree with a lot of them, but I disagree with a lot of them too. So I'm kind of taking the mentality, like, I just share my experiences. I do TikToks, and a lot of the Mexicans get on me too. I'm like, I'm just observing. I'm just like an umpire. I umpired baseball for years when I was a kid. Like, I'm just calling it like I see it. I don't know the answer, but these are things I noticed. So I'll just throw it out there. These are discussion pieces. Put it in your mouth, swirl it around, chew it up, spit it out, put it back in, and just kind of see if it sticks.
Right, absolutely. Hold on, I found the video, and I'm trying to play it really quick so I can show you guys Santa Fe, how rich it is out there.
Yeah, Santa Fe is cool.
I think this was a Ferrari dealership. Hold on, I'll just share screen. It's a lot easier, man. But the only problem about Santa Fe is it is a little out there. It was, I think, like an hour and 30 minutes away.
Depends on traffic. Like today's a holiday, so everyone's out of town. So traffic's moving real quick today. I think I put a girl in an Uber 2 days ago. Like 30 minutes she got here.
Right. So yeah, this was like one of my first trips out there to Mexico City. This was the first trip to Mexico City.
Yeah, the Hilton there, right when you're getting into Santa Fe, they do some cool events every now and then.
Right. Let me see if I can show another one. Hold on. It's kind of a bad video. Oh, this is the Airbnb right here. This is pretty cool. Let me go back to share screen. How often do you go to Santa Fe?
Well, usually I go down there for events, so once every 2 or 3 months or so. I don't go down there too often. And again, I live a different experience this time around because I make all my money online. So like where I'm seated now is where I spend most of my time. And then when I go out, it's usually around the neighborhood or the adjacent neighborhoods. If I do leave town, it's usually because I'm leaving the country, and that's usually work related.
Right. So in this Airbnb, they actually have security on the bottom, and in order to go up to the room, they have to fingerprint you, which is crazy,
Oh,
man.
they don't do that in my building. They have the log and the register. So, like, obviously, if you live in a building that's a secured building, you get in cool with the security guys. So, like, they'll always call up, which is nice. Because I was talking to a Mexican buddy earlier. He's like, "Yeah, man, my ex-girlfriend just keeps showing up." I'm like, "Dude, not in my building." Like, they ring up here, and I have to give them access. So, like, no one catches me up, and you pay a little extra money for that. But it is nice having security in your building.
Right. And then another thing about Santa Fe, if you go there really late at night, you don't have access into the city. It's crazy. It's like you need like a security guard, like the Uber driver, like he stopped and he was all like,
"That's right. They need the tags, don't they? Because
yes.
every now and then I'll order an Uber down there. Like, hey, I don't have a tag. How do I get in?" I'm like, "Here's the chick's number. Just call her, and she'll navigate her neighborhood." I have no idea.
Yeah, man. And so, yeah, it's crazy. It's definitely crazy. So, but overall, good, safe, great time. Let's do closing thoughts. So,
Yeah, let's do it.
guys. Last minute, if you guys want to super chat and ask him something specifically, you guys are welcome to, but I'm going to do closing thoughts. So appreciate you coming through. What would you say that's really, really important? 3 aspects where guys can be successful in dating in Mexico City.
Okay. This might be off the beaten path a little bit. So first and foremost, like, do your best to really lean into the culture, lean into the language, open your mind up a little bit, even, go off the beaten path, but really just come and leave all of your mental hangups back home. I know a lot of times, like black pill, red pill type stuff. It's like, oh, these girls are all 304s, this and that. You're going to get all of that here too. Like Latin women, like they'll be the most faithful in the world, but they'll also be very unfaithful. Again, it's a cross section of everything. You'll find everything here. So just go into it with an open mind. Just show up, be cool, have a good time. If you do want to stay, make sure that you do have money you are making online. Make sure you at least have some savings in the bank. I always say, I get people that'll write me. They're like, "Hey, man, I want to get a job with a Mexican company." I was like, you don't want to make Mexican wages living in Mexico. Make money in dollars and pay in pesos. That's the whole name of the game. Like, if you're going to be poor in your home country. Like, don't go to a country you don't speak the language and you're not legal and be poor. That's just kind of it's not a fun way to live life.
Right.
And then I'd say 3. I had another one. What was that? So, like, yeah, be cool with everyone. Like, do the money thing. I'd say 3. Yeah, it kind of goes back to the first point. I mean, just have an open mind about it. Come on down. Just look to have a good time. Meet cool people. I was telling a girl I was with earlier, like one of the real young ones, because I'll take her to higher end places, and I'll take her to very not high end places, and she's just clutching onto me the whole time. She's like 19, and she's like, "Oh my," and she's just fascinated by it. She's like, "Oh my God, how do you know this?" I'm like, and so I told her earlier, I was like, a thing to say, especially when you're in a bad neighborhood, because people will look at you. And I've gone to neighborhoods like Compton in LA. It's like those movies where like the blacks and whites get along and the record drops and they're all fucking, like, Bill Burr makes jokes about it. Like, but they're not mean. Everyone's really cool wherever you go. Like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "I heard there's some good soul food here. Is that true?" And like, I was like, "Oh yeah. It's this place here." And like, they're always super excited. So same thing down here. It's like, went into this, like, it was like a day rave in this like very not so nice part of town, and people kind of like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, I heard from some cool people. There's a lot of cool people here. Am I wrong?
Right.
No one's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, no, this is actually where douchebags and like pieces of shit hang out." Like, "Oh yeah, no, we're cool people." I'm like, "All right, so I'm in the right place, right?" So it's like kind of approach it from that sense. Again, I'm from like small town USA, so when I first started traveling abroad, I had some mental hangups too. Like, this is the way the world should be. This is the way things should be. And again, whether you're red pill, purple pill, black pill, PUA, any of these fucking acronyms or these capsule type philosophies, yeah, like they all have their merits, but kind of let that go, lean into yourself, and go out there. Just like, "Hey, I heard there's really cool people here, and I want to go where cool people are. Is this the place, or am I in the wrong place?" They're never going to be like, "Oh yeah, no, this neighborhood sucks. Don't hang out here." They're like, "Oh yeah, no, you're in the right place." Like, "Hey," and they'll invite you to beers and do whatever. So just kind of approach it with that attitude, and I think you'll have a good time.
Okay, great. So you guys go ahead and sub to my guest's channel. if you want further information on Mexico City, again, it is a gosh, I can't even say this word right now.
It's getting late. It's getting late.
Centrally located place in North America. So if you're traveling anywhere through Latin America, most likely you might have a layover in Mexico City. Check it out, whether if it's 12 hours or 6 hours.
If you're going to Medellin, you'll lay over here. So it's like an 8-hour layover. Stay the night.
And a day or two. Again, if you want to meet beautiful Latinas, okay, Mexico City is very diverse with other Latina ethnicities.
They have Asians, Europeans, and Arabs here too. There's Russians here. There's Israelis. There's Palestinians here too. It's emerging into a major global city. I was explaining this to the cab driver earlier. Like, there's a large large anti-American sentiment here. But I was explaining to him, I was like, hey, Mexico City's just getting started. They're going to go through some growing pains. Eventually, maybe within our lifetime, it'll be like a New York, Tokyo, London, to where you walk around in London and like, where's the English people? Like there's no British people there. In New York, they're like, hey man, what country are you from? I'm like, oh, I'm from this country. But like, I don't see any other Americans like me, if that makes sense, in New York. So Mexico City is starting to head in that direction. They have a long way to go, but I think they're just kind of taking off right now. So it's a good time to get down here. Yeah, definitely. So until then, your boy QB Passport flexing. Signing off. You guys have a good one. Everybody get along in the chat, especially. I know. Yeah, your chat's on fire, man.
Right. All right, man. I'm going to holler at you guys. Okay.